Millions of Californians take cover this morning during the great shakeout we were just talking about. It's part of the state's preparedness in case of a major earthquake. Well, 30 years ago today, the deadly Loma Prieta earthquake stopped the third game of the World Series at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. Our Max Rodriguez joins us now with a look at the devastation and what we've learned in the 30 years since the Loma Prieta quake. Max.
Gino, good evening. Well, this was a strong earthquake, a 6.9 magnitude. It stopped the entire Bay Area and more than 60 people died and thousands others injured. It was a wake-up call for the entire state. It was minutes before the start of the third World Series game at Candlestick Park, the 1989 match between the Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. A rivalry quickly forgotten as the 6.9 Loma Prieta earthquake jolted the city to a stop.
I'll tell you what, we're having an earthquake.
Burning for at least 3 hours. At least 2 to as many as 8 people have been confirmed dead in Santa Cruz right now.
It was just a surreal day. Just surreal, because you go from the excitement of covering a World Series to suddenly covering one of the biggest natural disasters that Northern California has seen.
A roar filled the stadium.
They got some structural damage up top. Some things fell on some people. They got them in first aid.
At this point, the severity of the destruction throughout the city was unknown.
6.9, indicating the strength of the earthquake here.
But soon they saw the destruction from the violent shake. Power was out in most of the bay. It destroyed homes and started fires in the Marina district and crumbled parts of the Bay Bridge.
San Francisco was black. You could see the glow from the fires as they were burning in the Marina district, but that was about it.
And you're going to see a few headlights out there, but on a normal night, you'd be able to see the lights from San Francisco.
The 15-second quake killed 67 people and injured more than 3,000. All of this damage caused by a slip along the San Andreas Fault. The fault is 800 miles long, and it passes right through the Coachella Valley.
This is a great shakeout.
Californians have prepared for over a decade with statewide shakeout drills. It's become a necessity for adults and children to know what to do and how to help.
The big one that's coming soon, we don't know when, that we have to prepare and be ready for it.
Part of being ready is knowing at least seconds before a jolt. California just launched MyShake, the first statewide application of its kind. It's designed to alert users of motion before it's felt on the ground.
For everyone in the state, MyShake, but also for this nation and for the world, who I think are looking for this technology.
As alert systems advance, earthquakes like the 6.9 Loma Prieta reminds us life will not be the same after a disaster.
When you have large sections of freeway collapsing down on top of each other, when you have a section of the Bay Bridge that has collapsed, suddenly engineers knew we really aren't ready for something like this.
The question now is, how ready are we today? New alert systems could give people a 10-second window to take action, but it's up to us to have emergency kits ready in order to survive hours, days, or until help comes our way. I'm Max Rodriguez.
All right, Max, thank you for that. So 2 days in a row now, the 20th anniversary of Hector Mine, 30th anniversary of the Loma Prieta. Hopefully we'll get those earthquake kits, and it's coming. It's absolutely coming.
Now then, the alert system, too, is kicking into effect today as well. So
yeah, join us in our next half hour. We're going to sit down with retired reporter Dan Adams, who was on the ground 30 years ago today. We'll talk to him about what he remembers from that fateful day 30 years ago and what it was like trying to broadcast the news back to his hometown of Sacramento to keep people abreast in this dire situation. So that's coming up at 6:30. Hope you'll join us. All right, we're joined now by retired KXTV News 10 reporter Dan Adams. Dan, of course, also works with us here at NBC Palm Springs as a news consultant. You were in San Francisco for your Sacramento station, right, covering the World Series.
Right.
You're ready to go live 30 years ago, almost to this hour. What do you recall from that moment?
The anchors were getting ready to toss to me for the live shot about people arriving for the ball game, and all of a sudden, it was almost like a bus going by. And it felt like, just a rumble. Well, then it really started to shake. And I looked up ahead, and the light standards above the stadium were going like crazy. And all of a sudden, it was eerily silent inside the stadium until it stopped. And then just this roar from inside the stadium.
Amazing. Okay, so now you're on the ground. You've managed to tell your station we're having a big earthquake before the tower falls.
Yeah, we used to work, we were the CBS station in Sacramento. We worked with KPIX, Channel 5 in San Francisco. We were sister stations, so we used their facilities. But when the quake hit, they lost power at their station, and the tower that we used for a relay to get our signal from San Francisco back over to the Central Valley, it got wiped out in the East Bay Hills. Before it fell, I had a chance to tell the producer, we're having an earthquake, we're having a bad earthquake. And so they knew that it was that we were having something. But it's interesting, Gino, because it took about 70 seconds before the quake hit Sacramento. So they had like early warning system. It's probably the first early warning system.
Right. Now, without getting too much inside baseball about how TV broadcast is done, you needed to find a way to get on the air to report what was happening.
Yeah.
How did you do that when power is wiped out in the Bay Area?
And keep in mind, no cell phones back then. I mean, we had one of these brick cell phones in the live truck, but they didn't work very well back at that time. And so there was really no way to communicate because everything was knocked out. So I took the station's American Express card and started knocking on doors of satellite trucks that were there to cover the baseball game. And I think it was ESPN's truck that finally said, we have a second satellite that we can send you up on. And so with that, we could also get telephone service back to Sacramento. And so that's how we got up in the air about 30 minutes after the quake.
Right. And the irony in so much of this earthquake was not only did it hit at the start of a World Series game, so the whole eyes of the country, but it was the first and only time that two Bay Area baseball teams were in the World Series against one another.
Yeah.
And that was a whole sort of a twist. It was a full Bay Area thing, and then the most Bay Area thing that could happen happened.
And because of that, we had so many crews there to cover the baseball game. We were really well situated to cover the event as it happened. And since the Bay Area stations were knocked off the air, so they relied a lot on us, the Sacramento stations, which can be picked up in parts of the Bay Area, to provide information on what was going on. And then a couple of stations started coming back on, but basically it was Sacramento stations that provided the coverage for the first few hours of the earthquake. Ironically also, so the ball game's canceled, obviously.
Right.
Candlestick Park was damaged. The ball games were rescheduled like a week later, I think, but they all had to be played in Oakland. Nobody cared about the game.
Not anymore, sure, yeah.
And it was just like, oh yeah, the World Series is being played today. Well, so what? You can't even get around the Bay Area still.
So for the initial moments, you're scrambling to do what you can, but how long did you stay on the air and on the ground in San Francisco trying to cover the news?
Personally?
You personally?
We were on all night long. And then the next morning, we tried to find a restaurant that had electricity just to get something to eat. But it was interesting because after I went off the air, I kind of field anchored for this. I drove into San Francisco to Union Square, and the I-Magnin store was there, big tall building, which is Macy's now. Firefighters were up on the upper floors knocking glass out, and it was falling down below into Union Square because they were so concerned about the glass breaking and hitting people down below. It was just one of those weird nights. Cops that normally aren't real friendly to the news media sometimes could see us say, oh, you guys need some water? We've got water in the trunk of our car. You guys probably need something. It's like, great, thank you. So everybody came together. And I heard a report on the radio this morning that ironically, there was no looting. Everybody came together, and it was just one of those times where San Francisco and the Bay Area said, we need to help out each other, and there really was no examples of looting.
That's amazing. All right, Dan Adams, thank you. Thank you for reliving this event, which, as you can see, 68 people killed.
63.
63 people killed, a horrific event, but certainly lessons that we've learned and been able to use going forward. No more double-decker roads are being built anywhere in California.
No. They learned a lot as far as communication goes and also as far as engineering goes. We have a whole new Bay Bridge now, too, remember?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We'll be right back.